Joining me now is the man leading the hunt for Shawn Williams. It's U.S. Marshal David Jolly of the Eastern District of Tennessee. Marshal, this is terrifying. I mean, look, we do manhunts all the time, and typically, if they're on this show, they do bad things. But I don't know that I've ever seen someone with this incredible pattern of violence and criminal activity who's been able to elude authorities like this. What is the latest on the search for him? How close are we to getting this guy back in shackles?
Unfortunately, we don't have any new leads. Nobody has seen him since the morning of the escape, which was tomorrow will be 21 days. So it's very cold right at the moment.
Do we think he's armed and dangerous? Because he just seems to be a very crafty person. Obviously, he's alleged to have been extraordinarily violent with women and children, but do we think he's armed and dangerous for anybody else out there?
We have no knowledge that he's armed, but we certainly consider him to be a very dangerous individual, a desperate individual who does not, in any circumstances, want to go back to incarcerations. I mean, will do anything that it takes to avoid being taken back into custody.
So as a U.S. Marshal, I can only imagine that it just, enrages you to think that we had him. We had him in belly chains and leg irons and handcuffs in a transit van on the way to court with two human assets guarding him, and somehow he was able to get away. Please tell me, if you know more than I do, how that happened.
Well, I wish I knew all the answers to the how part of how this happened. Obviously, there was a failure by the transport team of some sort. Whether they were in collusion in some way, whether it was pure negligence or exactly how it happened. Investigators are looking into that part of it as we speak, led by the FBI. And we'd like to know those answers ourselves, whether, exactly how it happened and did he have any help?
Well, that's a good question. And I want to get to the help on the inside or the outside. Those are always natural questions. But I just want to ask another question about the escape itself. Look, this is the age of surveillance, right? There's a camera everywhere. And I can only imagine that there would have been a camera in that transit van. Was there?
There is a camera in that van, but the camera was not working. So very questionable as well. There were a lot of failures at the particular time. So that's there's just so many questions related to how did this happen when he showed up at the courthouse, when the transport van showed up at our courthouse, pulled into our Sally Port and to meet with our deputy marshals to unload the two prisoners that were arriving for court. And obviously one of them was missing. And we've had numerous questions. I can make a long list of all the questions of just how in the world could this possibly happen without the transport officers knowing that he was able to get out of that van, especially since there were two officers in there and this guy had handcuffs, and which the handcuffs were found inside the van. Somehow he was able to get out of those. We don't know how that happened. It's not easy to get out of handcuffs.
Well, and Marshal, leg irons and belly chain is the reporting that we've got on it. So I would venture to say that's even harder. I did not know there was a second inmate.
Yes.
He was what?
Yeah, if he was properly restrained as protocol calls for, he would have had a belly chain and he would have had leg irons as well.
So a couple questions about this. Let me start with the second inmate. I didn't realize there was another inmate in there. Can that inmate be compelled to tell what he knows? Can he face any kind of charges for aiding, or is he allowed his Fifth Amendment?
He's allowed his Fifth Amendment. I hate to talk too much about the investigation as far as what he has maybe told us or not told us, partly for his own safety, but I hesitate to talk too much about what the other inmate has told us or not told us.
Yeah, totally understand. And let's not say his name. I didn't even know it was a he, but I assumed so. So let's talk now about the mechanics of all of this, because I don't even know if I've checked all the boxes yet, but we've got a camera not working. We have two human assets who somehow don't notice when one of only two inmates breaks out a window of a van and gets out of a lot of restraints. The natural question would be inside job. I mean, that's probably what everybody watching right now thinks. So what are the possibilities it is an inside job?
Well, that's certainly a question that you have to ask. Was it, or was there some major negligence on part of the transport officers? Very questionable. It's the whole circumstances of not arriving at the federal courthouse to our office with this inmate not being there. There's just so many questions.
So how much of the investigation right now is, I mean, the acute aspect of this story is that he's out there and he's, a rapist, an alleged rapist on videotape, or his own camera apparently recording 50 times over. What is the priority here? Catch him and then deal with the massive lapses in moronic behavior of the jailers? Or is it a bifurcated process? Both of them are top priority.
Well, they're basically both top priority, but really number one is catching Shawn Williams and getting him back into custody so that he can face all of these numerous charges that he has pending. That's really number one. But, parallel to that, at the same time, there's this other investigation into the how aspect of this whole escape.
Yeah, I'll say. Okay, so the other thing is that he showed up at a home to use the phone. Are you at liberty to tell me a little more about that? Like, is this someone who had no idea and he was long gone before they realized who he was? Or what were the circumstances of that?
Basically, that's correct. This happened about an hour after the escape, after the arrival at the courthouse, and it was realized that Shawn Williams was missing from the van. He walked to the front porch of a woman and had a lot of blood on him and asked to use the phone. She did not allow him to use the phone. Obviously, this seemed to be pretty alarming to her. She was not aware of the escape at the time, and it was a little while later before she actually called law enforcement and let us know that a man had been to the house, and she had heard by then that there had been an escape, and it might have been Shawn Williams. Was
she okay? Was there any incident there with her? I mean, think about the person who was on her porch covered in blood. Was she unscathed?
She was unscathed.
Thank
Nothing
God.
happened. Fortunately, he didn't do anything to her. He moved on. But he was a pretty bloodied up guy, according to her. So obviously he had some likely injuries from his leap through the window of the van.
I'll bet. I can't thank you enough. I'm about to give out the information about this, but before I do that, Marshal, I'd just like to ask about the reward. It's only $7,500, which, there have been all sorts of cases that have been a lot more than that. Is that going to go up soon?
I would expect that there's a very real possibility that the reward will go up in the near future.
U.S. Marshal David Jolly, thank you so much. Find him, please. Help me out here. Do your best. Tell your men and women, and let's be in touch. Keep us posted, okay?
Yes, just asking the public to help in any way they can. If anybody has any sighting of him, any knowledge whatsoever, we want him. This is an extreme case for our guys are working round the clock on this investigation, and we want to get him apprehended absolutely as soon as possible.